Are we ready?
Yep, you're live.
Oh, we are. Thanks, Mark. Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, November 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. We will begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
So we're going to begin tonight's board meeting with organization and a reading of the mail. That will be followed by department board updates and requests. We have an information session regarding the fiscal year 2020 property tax rate classification hearing. That will be followed by public input and members updates. And at 6:50 p.m. we will have select board discussion regarding resident discussion of the Sudbury Valley Trustees herbicide spraying. Edward Drive, a discussion about safety issues. That will be followed by a discussion of waiving and possibly reducing select board licensing fees. And then finally, that will be followed by a discussion about the renewal of the VFW lease. At 7:25, we will have a town administrator update, just general updates. 7:30 p.m. consent agenda, and then that will be followed by our meeting minutes, and then this meeting will adjourn. So if you could, Mr. Layden, provide us with an update regarding an email.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Within the board's packet, there are two documents, one from Xfinity regarding the launch of Black News Channel and Jewish Broadcasting Service, NHD. And then the second is a Greater Lowell Community Foundation Fall Appeal. They serve a region that includes Littleton, and within the board's packet was just some information as far as some of the services that they provide to the region.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the board on those items? Okay, so now we're on to department board updates. We have an information session about the fiscal year 2020 property tax classification hearing.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring in Sean as well as Cheryl.
Are the assessors on with us tonight? They usually are the ones to present this to us.
Yeah, Kathy and Fred.
No, they are not here. They're going to be, my understanding, and Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to be part of the public hearing that will be next Tuesday.
So we won't have any opportunity to ask them questions tonight prior to us making a decision.
So tonight's just info session. There'll be no decision making because we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
But we still don't have any opportunity to ask questions of the assessor or the board of assessors.
it was my understanding they would be on tonight. So I'm just checking on that.
Great.
Hopefully I'll hear back soon.
If they are, please add them to the panel, obviously. Whoever has that magic power.
Will do.
Thank you.
they going to be able to join us, Cheryl, or?
I just talked to Kathy. She's logging on now. She
Okay,
had
great.
thought it was 6:45 for some.
Okay.
reason. And I think was just reaching out to Fred to make sure he could get on as well too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if the board, could consider as far as taking one item out of order, just to give people a chance to sign on.
Okay.
My first thought was the VFW lease, just to get that taken care of and give Kathy and anyone else a chance to sign on.
Okay. That sounds good. So, as the board knows, we entered into a lease arrangement with the VFW Post 6556, I think 2 years ago, or I think about 2 years ago. We availed ourselves to this opportunity to do so. As many residents know, VFW Post 6556 is located on Taylor Street. It's one of the few remaining VFW posts in Massachusetts, actually, and it's unique in that it also serves as a post for the American Legion. So it provides services not only for veterans, but also active duty military. In our community, the town of Boxborough and the town of Harvard are also under the umbrella of VFW Post 6556. Both organizations, the VFW Post 6556 and the American Legion, provide essential services to veterans and active duty military in our community. And the board felt at the time that we would avail ourselves of this opportunity to help this important organization by entering into a 5-year lease agreement with them. In exchange for the lease agreement, we have unlimited use of the VFW free of charge, and there's many organizations that have availed themselves to that opportunity, either through fundraising events or holding meetings at the post. So happy that we have made this decision to support this important organization. And I believe this is the 3rd year of the 5-year lease agreement. Is that correct, Mr. Layden?
Correct. Last year in 2019, as well as in 2018, the board had signed and approved similar 1-year leases. According to town council, he indicated that he doesn't remember why it was a 5-year lease, but then it was re-executed every year, that it may have to do with the annual appropriation that's done at town meeting.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board on the renewal? Mr. Glavy?
Yeah, just to affirm, I think it's a great deal. It's not a big cost to the town. It obviously supports an important cause. And if there's any downside, it's only that we haven't fully figured out how to avail ourselves of what we have in front of us to deal with. We've had a lot on our plate, but it's nice to know that, if we need additional meeting space for not just traditional board meetings, but for functions, we've got that space, and we just got to remember to use it more often.
Right. Yep, I agree. Thank you. Mr. Nordhaus?
Has it been used since COVID restrictions have gone into place, but either by the VFW or as a gathering place, or by the town, for someone asking to use it as a space?
Personally, I'm not sure. Since COVID's, I know that they were closed for a while under the state restrictions. Since being able to reopen, I'm not sure how much it's been utilized since that time.
I don't think membership meetings have been held under the restrictions.
What other do you know what other organizations did use it before the COVID shut everything down?
Oh, so, Littleton Athletic Booster Association, the Friends of Littleton Veterans, the Littleton PTA used it regularly.
Retirement parties for employees.
Yeah, we've had many functions there. Yeah, for town employees. Appreciation luncheons for town employees were held there as well.
Maybe we could use it as adjunct town offices, given our space crunch right now.
Possible.
I bet you there'd be a bunch of people volunteering to work there.
We're talking the left side of the building, Matthew, not the right side of the building.
I can walk there from my house. We can do board meetings there.
Excellent. There's no further questions or comments. Do we have a motion on that, Mr. Layden?
Yes, we do.
All right, since he took it out of order, Madam Chair, I have to find it now. That's right, I've got it. All right. I will move that the select board vote to approve the one-year lease agreement with the Littleton Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 6556, Inc., a Massachusetts nonprofit corporation for non-exclusive right of access to the property for purposes of holding meetings and other events.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Matthews, yes.
Mr. Glavy?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste?
To the coast is yes.
And Cindy Napoli is yes, and the motion is approved as written. Thank you very much. Do we have, are they on the meeting now, Joe?
I see Catherine Miller is here, and Fred just signed in as well.
All
So
right,
I've
great.
just promoted them to panelists.
Fred usually has words of wisdom, so I like to hear from him every year. And Catherine, too. Yeah.
Good evening, Fred.
And Kathy.
Hello. Sorry, I had to get rid of my background.
Good evening, Kathy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. And Cheryl, you as well. So this is the informational session regarding the fiscal year 2020 property tax classification hearing. So I don't know who wants to lead us off on this discussion.
Sean is going to run the presentation, so he just joined
Excellent.
on for as a panelist.
Great.
Cheryl, did you say his audio wasn't working and he's the phone number?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Okay, Sean, can you hear me?
Come on.
Hi,
Opie.
sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't know why my microphone wasn't working. My video's not working either. So rough start, but yeah, happy to run through the tax classification information session presentation. I'll kind of provide a general overview, and then if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt, and Kathy and Fred, feel free to add some color to as I run through it. So I'm going to try to share my screen now. Can do that. Okay. So important to note, obviously we're still waiting for DOR's certification of our values, but this session will have all preliminary values that we think will hold true, but just have to note that. All right, this first slide is a good overview that presents the average single-family tax bill along with the assessed values. So as you can see, the average single-family tax bill are the green bars with Littleton in yellow, and the average single-family assessed value is the little home icon, and that aligns with the right axis. So you can see we're in the middle amongst our peers, which I think is a good spot to be, and those are off of 20 values.
Would you rather take questions would you rather take questions along the way or at the end?
I can take questions now, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, you may live to regret that, but
All right, then I'll put them at the end.
just looking at just these two data points and trying to make sense of it, the proximity of the little house to the corresponding bar on the bar graph. If your house is higher on the bar graph than another town, is it reasonable to say that the tax bills, as opposed in correlation to the value of the homes, it's better to be higher, the house to be higher on the bar graph than lower, in terms of you're getting a high home value but not paying a correspondingly over high value for your on your tax bill? Is it, you make any sense out of that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of exactly what we're going for. It's sort of it's a way to value, kind of a value index where you take two components, because what often you'll hear is, either the tax rate's too high or the tax bills, so I think this is a good way to account for everything without, you could have a $25 tax rate, but very low assessed values, or vice versa, so this is a way to take an account for all of that and show towns within 10 miles what sort of the norm is, at least on the residential side.
Yeah, I always try to find an opportunity to remind folks through this dialogue that the actual tax rate is kind of meaningless in the big picture. It's just a math component of how you arrive at the bill, and obviously we tax to the max, as does almost everybody. But if you're looking to whether you're getting your bang for your buck, if your little house here in this chart is relatively high, or in certain cases slightly above the tax bill, then effectively your value of your home is increasing more than the value of than the cost of your tax bill.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and that's it. It helps to bring those two elements together. So I think that's really what we were looking to get out of that.
Good. I hadn't seen this chart before, but I kind of like it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a little it's a new one, so rolling it out. All right, if we're all set with that, the next one's very similar. This is how we stack up in terms of the median tax, the average single family tax bill versus the median. So, in terms of the 17 other towns, Littleton was in 10th at a little over 8,200, and the median was close to 8,500. So we're not too far off. A little over 2% from there. So, and that's been steady over time.
Yep.
So that's kind of another look at that first chart there.
I'll bet that looks like good financial management to you, Dan, doesn't
it? Yeah, I can't take credit for all this. So
no, I wasn't really crediting you so much, but you're new. But...
Oh, I will in time, but not.
Yes, that's right. Yet. Your day will come. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So here's where we get into the actual numbers, which haven't been certified yet, but this is our best bet at what will likely play out. So we have our prior year's levy, the 40 million, plus the 2.5% allowable levy increase. So that's about 1 million. And then our new growth came in strong at 878,000, putting our current levy at 42 million plus the excluded debt amount, which is net of the debt exclusion stabilization fund, of 164,000. So we're anticipating the levy at 43 $1,303,152. Now, below that is just more of a illustrative look at the debt exclusion stabilization fund and how that's planned to be used. Now, this is good because it helps to smooth on large capital projects without putting too much of the tax burden on the residents and businesses as we go forward. So it's a good tool and a prudent use of funds to minimize tax impacts, but also to also with regards to capital planning. So.
Sean, if I first of all, apologies. I mentioned I called you Dan, and that was for it was a mistake, but it was because you got high glowing remarks from our former colleague Dan Sullivan, who was your former colleague and Native.
Oh yeah,
yeah. On the debt exclusion number, can I assume that number that we're looking at this year, we don't have some prior year data to compare it with? Is that a dropping number from year to year?
So I believe. I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe it was a little over 1.3 last year and down to 1.2 this year. So realistically, I think the goal with the debt exclusion is to use the stabilization so that it will ease it off rather than spend it all one year and then have a tax spike in another year.
Right. I knew that was our intent. I just was wondering how it was playing out. Thank you.
Yeah, and below is sort of the look ahead. Now it depends on a lot of variables going forward, but that's sort of the plan below in terms of the use line. You can see the 164 in 21, and 22 161, and 23 127, and so forth. Oop, jumping around. All right, property value. So we are in a reval year, so that basically means that DOR every 5 years, it used to be every 3, but every 5 years now, comes in and works with Kathy in terms of going through values, and it's just more of a longer process than an interim years. And it's just something that every town goes through in terms of state reporting and compliance. The important thing to note, and I think this is the biggest challenge that we're going to be facing, is that all values are based off of January 1st, 2020. So that's obviously pre-COVID conditions, and that's our data valuation. So that's our benchmark. We can't adjust off of that until we get to sort of the abatement season in January. So the good news is that there was a increase in overall total property values by close to 5.7%. As you can see from the graph below, the residential market has been booming and continues to be. Commercial and industrial, as well as personal property, has been steady, has shown steady increases over the years. Now, I'll touch on this a little bit later with some scenario planning for the commercial, industrial, and personal side. But for right now, the values have been encouraging, but it really depends on how things will shake out with the changes in value that may arise from the pandemic. But I'll get on that a little bit later on. Property values by class. So this is sort of the crux at what we're talking about in terms of the purpose of the classification information session, is to understand kind of the breakdown of our values and where we want to go. So looking at 21's values, the total values of all the land in town is close to $2.18 billion. Of that, about 23% is commercial, industrial, personal, and 78% is residential. So that's a pretty healthy mix. It's a good balance, and it's something that in a couple of slides we'll show what an example of the CIP shift would be. The growth over time. So this shows how we've gone from a little over 2 billion to 2.18 billion from FY20 to FY21, and you can see that 70% of that growth came on the residential side. And I think on the graph below, I think the impressive thing is the proportionality between over time between the commercial, industrial, personal property and the residential market. I think that's good. It shows businesses and residential growth has sort of mirrored each other over time. So it just creates for a healthier tax base.
I'm not sure whether, Sean, you'd have an immediate answer to this, but maybe Fred or someone else might. To put a face on that, obviously we know what's happening with residential values, and especially on the new construction end. But is there something on the commercial side that allows that to continue? Something specifically that allows that to continue to be a strong chunk of it? Just year to year from FY20 to 2021?
I might punt to Kathy or Fred on that one. They'll probably have a better sense on that.
So for the past couple of years, it has been strong. We had the Point come on, and we had a couple other, like the marijuana facility. I'm trying to think, Pepsi, which we had a high depreciation on.
Okay, so we're past that now, right? Yeah.
So all of those things started hitting. FIBA had the hydrogen plant and some other strong growth over there. But what we're seeing, unfortunately, is it's going to be stopping significantly.
Right.
I was doing the projection, and unfortunately, going forward, there's very little that's coming on as far as commercial. And with everything with the COVID, it's really kind of putting a stop on everything. And that's why one of the things that we talked about is meeting tonight is talking about what this trend is going to do with the shift. As the outlook for residential is continuing to be strong. I mean, we have several subdivisions that haven't even broke ground. So I'm seeing the outlook. We still got Bluebird. We still have K property that's finishing. So I have, so many things coming on board for residential. But when you you look out for the commercial, it's so hard to speculate because, the Point took a big hit. I mean, certain things like Market Basket, gas stations, and certain things did very well. But then you have like the cinema, and you have the hotel that really didn't do well. IBM is up in the air. There's just so many things that until January comes and abatements come, that we're not even going to see what it's going to do. So it's going to be very enlightening this January.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a related question. Do you have any sense of what you'll see, whether you'll see something similar in residential, or if that will be delayed further? Any ideas at all from any one of you, like when the impact of COVID might hit residential?
I don't see it hitting residential. I met with Marin and I met with Ed, and we were looking at things coming on board and going out to fiscal year 24 for some of these subdivisions to even finish, that have even started. So we're going to be strong. I mean, I can't outlook past fiscal year 24, but I mean, the next 2-3 years, I don't see it impacting residential that much.
I ran some numbers, and 2 years ago, which would be the prior fiscal year or calendar year, we had 124 residential sales. Last year we had 131, and this year we're at 126 already. And this, I had to run these numbers like 6 times because they didn't make sense, but this is actually how they came out. So going back 2 years, the average sale price was about $570 and the median was about $570. Last year, which is the year that we're utilizing for these values, the average was 531 and the median was 510. And this year, and this is where we're going to see the impact on the residential classes, the average is 621 and the median 624.
Wow.
So you're going to see high, obviously there's many more higher end properties coming online, which are going to skew that residential class upward, regardless of what the commercial class is doing.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I got.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks,
Thank you, Fred.
Kathy.
Drop the mic, Fred.
Thank,
I think part of that.
so
is
Fred
not-
kind of stole.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think part of that, although it is higher end homes being sold, values of some of those 420 and 520 houses is significantly higher now too. So that's bringing that average up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys just nailed it. And I mean, I think Fred was talking about sales, and obviously in the assessing world, everything lags a year behind based on the calendar year schedule. So as you can see, I mean, even the increases from 17 through the proposed 21 have been significant. I mean, up 4.5% by 20,000 from 20 to 21, and then prior to that, there's been significant increases. And I think that's one of the aspects from the pandemic is that sort of properties, especially with more space and land, have been increased in value compared to more of the urban setting too. So I think this really highlights that, and I'll be curious to see what the results would be next year as well. So interesting trend to monitor. Now on the commercial side, which we haven't talked too much about yet, this is one of the models that we take all of our commercial property from Patriot, who's our contractor that helps us with some of the commercial values, and we exclude properties under 50,000 and over 2 million to get that small to mid-size business impact for in terms of what the average value of that is. Now for 21, the initial estimate is a 7% increase, or 38,900 from 554,000 to 593,000. Now, obviously that's off of the 1/1/20 valuation date, but it also shows how strong the business sector is in terms of value. So that's one we'll have to monitor, but it's I think it helps in terms of modeling it out to find those small to mid-sized businesses. This one's interesting. It's our new growth history and estimates going forward. So with new growth, you're almost, which is any new construction or renovations to properties. I think with new growth, Littleton's strongest point has been the residential, with obviously spikes in the commercial side as well. Looking ahead for 2022 and 23, we're obviously not anticipating significant amounts of growth on the CIP side, but still could look towards having a stable residential level of growth there. But still too early to tell, but it's one of those things that Kathy's looked at some projects ahead of time and provided some estimates. So useful to have going forward, but we'll really have to see how the CIP side fares going forward.
Sean, and I'm glad you pointed that out. What we're looking at here, a certain amount of this is prudent, conservative estimates because you can't count on anything that's not anywhere in the permit process yet. Is that right? Is that
Right.
the modeling assumption we're looking at?
Correct. Yes.
Right. Okay. So if somebody were to look at this chart and say, "Oh, we're on a cliff," well, no, not really. We don't know. It's just we can't count on anything we don't know about yet, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things with new growth, you're always better off estimating conservatively and then being happy about higher results rather than having to make significant adjustments. Now we're going to get into an example of the shift. So this is basic concept is that we're taking part of the residential portion of the levy and pushing it onto the commercial. So this is something that is an option for all towns, and Littleton's had a history of shifting a portion of the levy onto the CIP side. For this model below, I did the last residential shift, so that just shows if we did the same thing we did last year, what the impact would be. So it's illustrative to show which more as in terms of percentages is which pieces of the levy goes where. So you can see that with this, a little under 70% of the tax burden is on the residents, whereas close to 30% is on the businesses. And this just shows sort of a history of what the CIP factors we've done in the past. So, I mean, the helpful thing in this chart is it basically shows we've had a low of low CIP factor of 1.3 and a high of 1.5 in 2007. Now, 1.5 is as high as you can go, and we've tended to stay around the low 1.4 range. So what this basically, the hard thing about going to a 1.5 is that any adjustment going forward in future years, there's only one spot you can shift it, and it's to the residential side of the levy. So one of the, we were kind of thinking of sort of how do we look ahead and how to best inform the board in terms of the question marks with the CIP market going forward, and what would be, useful information to have. So looking ahead, we really looked at setting the tax rate in 21 as sort of a 2-year process, mainly because any shift done in FY21 will have to be adjusted for in FY22, especially if commercial values decline. So the two models in front of you are not based in actual numbers or anything like that. It's just basically playing out if there was a 5 or 10% decline in the CIP value. So that is significant, but it's not, the 5 and the 10 aren't really, they're just pulled out of the air. The 3.6% increase in residential is actually the increase that we experienced this year. So those dollar amounts help to show that if we did that with a CIP factor of where we've historically been at 1.4, those would be the potential impacts to tax rates, but more importantly, tax bills. So you can see how the residential side takes takes a brunt in 22 if those CIP values fall significantly. And in modeling out, we've modeled out some options between a shift of 1.37 and 1.43. So obviously happy to provide those going forward.
Madam Chair, if I can just ask one question here.
Sure.
Yeah, I love the way you're presenting. I assume it's a team effort. And I appreciate that some of the data in different ways we haven't seen it before. But it's good to have at least a commonality somewhere. And we've historically seen a chart showing what the various CIP factors, what they mean in terms of real dollar impacts on the average sized home in town, both going back a couple of years and then prospectively under various scenarios. And it's just helpful to get a little footing in history to have that kind of comparison. And this is enough of a change here that I'm having a tough time to trying to put this in perspective with our history here. So I don't know if that's something that's readily available to you folks between now and when we meet again or not.
Yeah, no, I think so. We have we've modeled out all of the plans. We're just waiting for the values to get approved, just so we don't have to change it again. We're fairly confident that everything will go well. I just want to know what would be the best sort of options to put forward. We have the usual standard sort of 10 options that we've done in the past, and those have ranged from...
I'm just speaking for one, Sean, and and I certainly don't want to make any busy work, but I think Kathy or Fred would understand that all of this is fine for my purposes. The one piece I'd like to see is that that whatever 10's probably exactly what we were looking at before. 10 different options. It's in a format that my brain is already used to, and that may be the case in a couple of other places too.
Yeah, and we have that done. We didn't include it in here based on the values not being set, but I'm happy to send that around.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So I think that covers everything. I'm happy to field any further questions or listen in on any discussion points.
Great. Thank you very much, Sean and Kathy and Fred, for your work on this. This is certainly very helpful, and some of the newer slides were definitely helpful visuals for us. I do agree with Mr. Glavy, though, about going back to the format that we've used in the past, just because we're used to that. It'll certainly be helpful to be able to rely on that when that information is available. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments from other board members based on the presentation. Sure, go ahead, Mr. Nordhaus.
Can you correlate the CIP factor with actual commercial development and whether it has a tangible effect?
I guess I don't understand the question.
I mean, in other words, if we raise the factor and raise the tax rate on commercial, does it depress commercial development in town and vice versa? Is there any way to measure that?
I haven't given that any thought. I really don't know. I would have to look into that. I don't know.
It might be difficult to tell, given that I assume that commercial development is kind of lumpy, like you get big chunks of it coming in and then a big, so it might not be. I was just wondering if there was any, if that was part of is that part of the thought process here?
Well, there's no steady stream of commercial development. So it's, as you said, it's up and down, and there's nothing to, it's tough to prove a negative. In other words, yeah, we had less commercial development because the factor changed. It's such a nominal difference now since we first instituted the shift back when Paul was in charge of things.
Wow.
But
As a junior member way back then, Fred.
Ping pong.
it's the change in the shift annually for the most part has been so nominal that you can't gauge whether there's any impact either way. And for the most part, most developers aren't looking at the tax effect of where the shift is, but rather the opportunity within the community.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any
I will-
any other
so-
questions?
I was going to comment. I do
Sure.
appreciate the assumptions for a reduction in CIP, because it's very real, and part of the conversation we're having later on is addressing to some degree some of the commercial businesses that we have in town and restaurants with pouring licenses. So I think that trying to wrap our brains around a 5% or a 10% reduction in CIP, it just helps us to have that conversation, and I think it better prepares us this year for what will likely see next year, and hopefully it is only 5 or 10%. I think we might need to be looking at something a little bit larger than that. But appreciate the effort that went into that and the foresight.
So just a question for the board as far as preparing for next week. Sounds like you'd like to have the sheets that we previously had incorporated into this PowerPoint, sort of showing more of a distribution of options.
Yes, I would. And
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I might just add on to that. First, thanks to the team for a great presentation.
Mhm.
And adding what Joe just alluded to, what we spoke to earlier, would be helpful. And along the lines of what Chuck was saying, and just to expand on that a little bit, the universe of what's in CIP, we should always remind ourselves, isn't always just new big wealthy companies. It's also the local pizza shop. So whenever we do something to them, we're having impact on small businesses as well as large businesses. So we need to be mindful of that. And the only thing I'd ask, Madam Chair, before we get off this topic, is if indeed there's anybody on the Zoom tonight that wants to give us input, from the public, I'm for one interested in hearing what that might be.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anyone on the call, Mr. Layden, who might want to?
Currently, no one has their hand raised. I am sort of texting with Cheryl. It sounds like Sean may be available to pull up that sheet that Paul was mentioning as far as different options if the board did want to take a initial look at it.
If it's not available now, just email out at some point is fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to state that was always the intention of having that for the actual classification hearing.
Mhm.
I think with the pending certified values, we just thought this would be an important, just to show trends and get in, you know what I mean? So you guys could see what was happening, and when you get that information, you would be more prepared to look at it. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
very
and
much.
I have it up. Oops, sorry. I have it up too. If anyone wants to see it, I have the options list.
Non-certified.
Correct. Yeah.
I'd say throw it up there, because if it's something different than what we're expecting, you've got time to make the pivot.
All right. Great.
No, it's all wrong.
Uh-oh. All right. Let me close out of that
No,
then.
One in every crowd.
So the way this is structured is basically the single rate at the top. If residential and commercial are the same, and basically what we have is the what the rate would be, what the tax bill would be, and then the dollar and percent change from the previous fiscal year. So it's set up in order from a residential factor of 1, which is the same, to a residential factor of 0.87. So this basically goes in order in terms of most costly to residential to most costly to the commercial side.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great,
that's exactly what
thanks.
we're looking for.
And Joe or Sean, if somebody will email that to us too, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on this item? No? Well, thanks again, Sean, Kathy, and Fred, and Cheryl for putting this together for us. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to receiving that email with that other chart that was just shown by Sean. That'll be helpful to prepare us for the hearing.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a
Good night.
lot.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, so next item on the agenda is public input and members' updates. Do we have anyone for public input, Mr. Layden?
Currently, no one has their hands raised.
Okay. All right, great. So we'll go on to members' updates. We're going to start with Mr. Knox.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nordhaus,
Nothing from me this week.
Mr. DeCoste,
Same. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Mr. Glavy.
Wow, this is odd. I've actually got a little list. I don't want
I yield. Yield the floor to Mr. Glavy.
what's that?
I yield the floor to Mr. Glavy.
Okay. First off, I had a great opportunity just because I was available to be at the Council on Aging, Friends of the Council on Aging in Littleton Rotary drive and grab Thanksgiving meal for the senior citizens at Il Forno last Tuesday. Everybody was respecting the social distancing, and yet it was a great, I think, great opportunity for the seniors who ordinarily attend the luncheons to come by and see familiar faces, and we get to see them. And I don't think anyone was put at risk, but everybody got their meal, and we're gone. And it's just a great reminder of what a great job all those organizations do. Friends of the Council on Aging, Barbara McCrae, and Phil Souza was the lead person from Littleton Rotary. And of course, Mike Mohammed and the crew from Il Forno. How many times have they stepped to the plate for this town? And somebody had the presence of mind to give me a job that I was capable for. I stood at the front of the driveway and pointed cars in the right direction. And when I had to leave, I was replaced by a chair with a sign on it. So, on top of that, just as a member update, earlier today, Joe Layden and I had a conference call with Jenny and Tom Harrington from Miari's in the Harrington office about the need to do an RFP for the Nagog Hill Farm contract. We were pursuing it in terms of just an update of the contract, but we were reminded along the way that we actually got to go out to a RFP again for that. So we spent some time kind of tweaking that, and we should have something. We're hoping, Joe, on the next meeting 2 weeks from tonight?
Yes, the 7th.
The next regular meeting in any event. Also, last Monday night, as well as Louise Nichols from Littleton had a chance to represent the Board of Health in the town on behalf of some of our residents with the Groton Board of Health, and I got to play bad cop for a little bit, and I think we made a little bit of a headway. Chuck, it might be time for you to step in as good cop at the next meeting to get it over the line. But anyway, that's
a new role.
What's that?
That'll be a new role.
I want to see that.
And Madam Chair, I have one other item, Madam Chair, but I'm sure you're going to get on it, so I'll leave it to you.
Are you sure? Okay,
Well,
'cause
if you don't, I'll jump in, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
okay, so I have a list, actually.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I just, right before you finish up, can I
Sure.
mention something? I forgot about the meeting that I had with Amazon, that meeting with, well, it's extremely important because the planning board has asked me to make this announcement that if there's anyone in the public that would like to make comments or try to give them feedback, they'd appreciate it. But to let people know that down on Taylor Street, 151, 153 Taylor Street, there's a very, very large building that's up. The 153, which is a large building, is actually coming down completely. That whole area is going to be 600 parking places for vans, 300 that will be used currently. And it's quite an operation. They think they have it nailed down a lot better than they had in some of the earlier ones, thanks to Chuck going out. I think the police chief went out too. They're trying to iron out some of those problems that exist in other towns, but they'd love to have feedback from the town. Obviously, they'd like to keep everything on Route 2 and Route 495, but one of the things that was brought up is that if you have a breakdown or a backup on 495, what does that do to
Right.
all the vans, and they're gonna throw them right through our street. So there's a lot more to be talked about, and the planning board is doing a good job on top of this. But once again, the planning board did ask me to comment and let the public know. They'd love to have feedback from you, and if you want to learn more about this, pay attention to the planning board meetings, because that'll be upcoming again.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks for bringing that up. So is the planning board putting anything together? I believe that they are, to help mitigate some of the concerns.
All that's being talked about. It's almost every single topic that was brought up before, dealing with no restrooms and things like that. Those things are being taken care of. They've been talked about. They've been brought up. They're taking care of that. They're talking about there won't be trucks leaving and parking outside and rearranging boxes. They think they have that all solved. But all those issues are still up in the air. There's going to be another meeting coming up with that same committee that I was with, plus planning board meeting. So they're not close to being finished yet. There's a lot of things to be worked on. But Northbridge, who owns the property, and Amazon are very willing to work with the town so far, from what I can see, on all those issues.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks. Thank you very much. So a few announcements, and I was going to ask Mr. Layden too, if we could maybe get these on the town website. I think there's going to be a flyer that's going to be circulated. Toys for Tots, Representative Arciero has invited the select board to participate with him at a Toys for Tots drive-through event at the police station on Saturday, December 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. So there's going to be a flyer, like I said, circulated about that event, but he had asked if members of the select board would participate in that event with him. It's to benefit the Lowell Santa Fund and Toys for Tots. It's an event he holds annually every year, usually in Westford, and he asked if Littleton would like to host it as well again this year. So
Awesome.
so that'll be good. We have a few announcements from the Rotary Club. I know this year we are not going to have our traditional Christmas tree lighting, but on Saturday, November 28th, there's going to be the ornament pickup. They usually have children pick up ornaments and bring them back and decorate a tree with them. So the ornament pickup is November 28th between 10 and noontime on the Common. There's going to be a virtual holiday bazaar on LCTV on Saturday, December 5th, starting at 10 a.m. And then on Sunday, December 6th, will be the virtual tree lighting. Unfortunately, again, we cannot be together on the Common, so we're going to make the best of what we can with what we have. The other thing I wanted to remember is remind people is to mask up. We've started a Mask Up 01460 campaign, the Select Board and the Board of Health. We've added a banner to the train station, the transfer station fence. There's going to be a banner going up across the roadway in front of the post office, as well as some other signs that we've put together to actually help promote, support our local businesses by wearing your mask. Those signs are going to be going up by the point. We also have some posters that we're going to distribute out to local businesses as well. So been working, it's been great to work with the Board of Health and try to get that information shared around town. And finally, I wanted to just give a mention. I had mentioned a few weeks ago about a resident who had kind of stepped up during the pandemic. That was Donna Daisy Trainer, by making masks and offering free masks to the public for people who couldn't afford one. But I also wanted to take a moment to thank the community and specifically Anne Marie Kraus for really taking it upon herself to reach out to the homeless population in Lowell. She learned about this group through a coworker and basically put it upon herself. This is really social media at its best. She put out a call to the community for coats, sweaters, hats, blankets, sleeping bags, and started just a drop off on her front porch. And my word, she's collected tents and tarps and sleeping bags. She's been back and forth from Lowell, I don't know how many times the past couple weeks. She actually invited me to go along with her this past weekend. And we were able to hand out a bunch of donations to people. And they're just so grateful for the help. She's connected with some homeless shelters in Lowell who have commended her for taking this on, and actually are very appreciative. And the homeless people are extremely appreciative as well. And this is reminiscent to me, and I'm sure Joe will remember this. I'm reflecting on Kathy right now. A few years back, we had a turkey drive. I don't know if you guys remember the turkey drive, when Loaves and Fishes put out the call because they were short on turkeys that year, and the residents of Littleton stepped up. Kathy spearheaded that. The Knoxes turned their real estate office on the common into a turkey drop-off. And we collected so many turkeys that year that we actually had to utilize the freezers at Kimball's to store them. So this is just bringing back memories to me, seeing what Anne Marie's doing single-handedly, just by seeing a problem and just reaching out to the community to help people that we don't know at all. It's really brought people together, and it's really been, I think, just a wonderful way to remind everybody of what makes Littleton so special. So I really just wanted to acknowledge Anne Marie for being who she is, and really, helping to change the lives of others this holiday season during the pandemic.
And as a follow-up to that, I realized there are a couple people that I should probably thank. There have been several people in town who've been making masks and giving them away. Lissy Bates' house is one that comes to mind. I think she's made a couple hundred at least. And Dina from Cloak and Dagger donated her the fabric, which was great. And then yesterday on social media, Sean Kelly from Neshoba, Aaron Boiler, I think they collected nearly 1,000 pounds of turkeys to give away.
Wow.
Every year he does it. That's an amazing charitable thing that it's just wonderful. So a lot of people in town stepping up to do right, and I like it.
Mm-hmm. It's all good. It's really great. Good. Okay. Any other comments from the board? So now we are on to select board discussion. The first item 4A was a resident discussion on the Sudbury Valley Trustees herbicide spraying. As the board knows, we did receive a letter from the Sudbury Valley Trustees asking us if we would continue this discussion for a couple weeks so that they could prepare and attend the meeting. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that, Mr. Layden?
Madam Chair, I mean, you pretty much summed it up exactly. The project manager for the herbicide spraying unfortunately could not attend. They had another meeting they had to attend and could not reschedule. They gave me a call asking for an opportunity to discuss and present at the next select board meeting. And I did verify with them that if we were to place it on our December 7th meeting, they would be able to attend and provide a presentation. They expressed, understanding that the community has a lot of questions and concerns, and just requested that they had an opportunity to speak to those.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any thoughts on that request?
Madam Chair, I watched the ConsCom meeting where Sudbury Valley presented their presentation. I assume that the one they'll give us will be similar. And I've also spoken to members of ConsCom and some members of the public, some abutters who called me to express their concerns. We can talk about those now, or we can wait until SVT is here. It's really up to you.
Okay. Does the board, I would just prefer to maybe have a discussion when Sudbury Valley trustees are present, but I'll leave it up to the will of the board. So Mr.
I think that's their request, is that they are able to address any concerns. I think we've all received several letters and appreciate Joe getting those out to us. And like Matthew, I'm sure all of us have gotten some of those phone calls, and I know that certainly we don't want to put those off. We want to give those, the airtime that they deserve. But I do think that if they've requested and we're going to move forward with continuing until December 7th, I think that's probably the best use of our time.
I'm confident they won't start spraying before December 7th.
Pretty confident, right?
Mr. Glavy, Mr. Knox, do you have any thoughts?
I agree.
If we do get into a discussion of it, I will probably recuse myself from a very distant point of, and the same development that's been an issue with me in the past on planning board involvement. The Sudbury Valley trustees, wouldn't you know, are going to be the likely recipient of the conservation restriction on part of the property, so I'll probably stay out of that discussion.
Okay. Mr. Knox?
No, I just think it's a wise move to have them present with any topics come up so they can answer instead of us allowing people to speak and then they have to weigh in. My other question is, it's great that have this topic brought up, but how much jurisdiction does our board have over this?
We don't have any jurisdiction. And I think
Right.
I think Sudbury Valley and LCT, which holds the conservation restriction on the land, have said as much. But I believe the abutters are asking us to weigh in because they are concerned and they feel as though they should come to us as their representatives. So I believe this is a courtesy that Sudbury Valley would extend to us to listen to us and then consider our input.
No, I think it's a great thing. I just want to know legally if we had any jurisdiction, that's all.
Right.
I think it falls more into constituency services and you're just us advocating for residents more so than us saying you can or you cannot. We can certainly offer some strong suggestions, and many of those have been addressed or offered up in some of the letters that we've gotten. So, but I think that those are better served with them on the line.
Yeah, I agree. So Mr. Layden will continue it to the December 7th.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, next up is item 4B, Edward Drive, a discussion of safety issues.
Joe's going to bring some people in on that.
Yep. Okay. Okay, everyone should be in as a panelist.
Okay, great.
So, Joe, do you mind if I just jump in here real quickly?
Go ahead.
Initially, when we had brought forward, before town meeting, when we had brought forward the developer and asked for, we had Chris in the line and we were trying to make sure that certain things were taken care of in order for us to accept the road. There was some, I'll be frank, I was a little bit loosey-goosey and I made some comments which I want to apologize on Zoom in this instance to Wendy and Dave Gullah. The way my comments came across, although I meant nothing by them, it was taken as somewhat offensive or that I was poking fun at or not taking seriously the Gullah's claims. And I want them to know that it was in no way I was actually, if I was poking fun at anyone or joking with anyone, it was Mr. Mullen. But it wasn't a time, it was a very serious matter for the Gullahs, and I just wanted to apologize to them publicly and just let them know that this is a serious matter and we don't stand for any developers who are not going to answer to residents of our town and do what they say. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I've spoken with Mr. and Mrs. Gullah, and I think we've cleared the air, David, but I just wanted to say that publicly just so that I could give the due respect to the Gullahs.
Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate that. And my wife is also on the call. I sent a letter, my wife and I sent a letter to all selectmen, our select women. And I think hopefully you had a chance to read our safety concerns. And while the primary safety issue has been resolved in my home, it was only after the town inspector pressured the builder Deca Corp. I don't know why the board or the town would tolerate this behavior from any builder. Is this a person that we want building in our community? I think not. I would like my letter, and I'll strike the piece about the mocking, but I would like my letter to the select board written into the record for today's minutes. And I'd also like it posted on the town website. And again, I will strike the piece about the mocking that Chuck just talked about. That piece will be removed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gullah. I mean, the letter will be part of the public record for this meeting. As far as posting it on the town website, I'm not sure where you would want to have that posted or what the purpose would be to post it.
As minutes, it would be part of it.
Yeah,
Part of the public record.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure that it's posted in a way that it's discoverable. If anyone wanted to Google, what does this builder do? Then my letter is a public record. That's
Okay.
They could find it.
yep, it will, yeah, so it certainly would be, it would become part of the public record for this meeting as part of the select board's packet and be discoverable through that process.
Thank you. And my wife, my wife is asking a question. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Why wasn't he asked at the last meeting why it did not get done?
Okay. My wife is asking why at the last meeting did not the select board ask the builder why this matter was not taken care of?
Can you guys hear me? This is Peter DeCarolis.
We can, just 1 minute, Mr. DeCarolis. I actually don't recall exactly how the discussion went during that meeting. I thought there was a healthy discussion back and forth.
Can I jump in, Madam Chair?
Sure.
So, Mr. Gullah, I think I've mentioned this to you as recently as tonight, but typically we don't get involved at the level of the homeowners and the builders. We have Mr. Stoddard represents us. In this instance, it was for us taking control of the road, and for plowing purposes and whatnot. So the individuals that would typically be in direct contact with the developer and know that level of granularity would be either the building commissioner or building inspector, or whoever's working on behalf of the DPW director or the highway director. And so we don't necessarily, or the planning board perhaps, if it was, or CONSCOM or one of the other regulatory boards. So for better or worse, or we typically don't get in the weeds, if you will, relative to each individual development or subdivision that's going on. We have professionals that do that on a daily basis, and it's not something that's not our purview. But when it came to our attention, I can understand yours or Wendy's willingness or wish that we had asked why it wasn't brought to code or why it took several calls to the building inspector in order to get response. So I'm not sure that necessarily answers it, but the short answer is it's not really our purview. It's not what the select board does. We were responsible for the accepting of the road, and that's based on the recommendation of those parties that I mentioned before.
Right. Thank you, Mr. DeCoste.
Can I say something now?
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to defend myself. First of all, Dave and Wendy saying that the building inspector had to call me and ask me repeatedly to take care of a gutter situation at Dave's house is 100% untrue. So I'll tell you the way what happened with Dave. He had one gutter that did not go into a dry well. It was spilling out between his front sidewalk and the front of his house. He told me in the winter when that happened, because the water went over the sidewalk, that it would ice up the sidewalk. So I said, all right, what I'll do is I'll run a pipe under your sidewalk. He verbally agreed to it. No call from the building inspector at that point at all. I went and I did just what I told him I would do. Ran the pipe under the sidewalk, and it just bled out into the front lawn. And a few weeks later, that's when I got one call from Ed. And I knew the call might be coming because I had heard some rumblings around that Dave was asking for a dry well within a 2-minute conversation with Ed. So keep in mind, I'm also trying to get the road ready for acceptance with the town as this is going on. And you guys saw me at several meetings. I had a punch list I was narrowing it down. Then this last item came up upon Ed's call. Within 2 minutes, I said to Ed, don't worry about it. I'll go put the dry well in. Ed did not call me more than once. It was a 2-minute conversation. Then I went and I did it. As far as Dave, Dave is vindictive and he's going around town. He was dumb enough to put in an email and several texts that not only is he going to Littleton to slander me, other towns I build in, he mentioned Westford, he would be going, talking to building inspectors, various committees to slander me and try and hurt my business. He did have a punch list when he moved into his house, which I have gone above and beyond to correct all the items. Dave and Wendy can attest to that because I've been in the house myself. My repair people have been there, but he is on a vindictive mission to hurt me. The road has been scrutinized and everyone has inspected it. I haven't seen this safety concern he's talking about. All I saw was one thing, that there's another gutter with another neighbor who has a similar issue, who I've since spoken with. It's Matt and Melissa Francis. We just have to pipe a gutter into another gutter. It'll take care of it. But this is going above and beyond. I do not appreciate. This is the second subdivision I've built in town. Everything went smooth. I got along with everyone, had no problems. This is slanderous. And Dave, I've had enough of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeCarolis. So I'm going to stop this right at this point. This is really a kind of a civil matter between a builder and a resident. Any safety concerns with respect to the structure itself, I'm going to defer to Mr. Mullen and ask that the parties follow up with him as our building inspector. The board's purview over this matter was with regard to the road acceptance in itself. I believe that we've done our diligence in that regard and relied on the town employees and the experts that we have, and that we don't have any further involvement at this point with respect to this issue. But like I said, I'm going to call on Mr. Mullen, who is on the call here with us this evening, to follow up with Mr. DeCarolis and Mr. Gullah to address their concerns going forward.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to
Sure.
let both parties know I'm available at any time during normal business hours at Town Hall for a phone call. If I'm out on inspection, I'll certainly return my call or any emails when I return. I'd like to say that I get along with both parties. I'm not sure what the incident is that occurred, but I'm happy to try to mitigate and resolve any issues between parties.
Yeah, I guess I just would I understand what the select board chair said, but I would just wrap up by saying all we're asking for is that you follow the code of the town. That's all.
Who did? Who follows the code?
So again, so if you could, and I appreciate that, Mr. Gullah and Mr. DeCarolis, your comments as well. I just do not think this is the proper venue for that. I think really the proper venue is to follow up with the building commissioner, as I stated, and address those concerns with him directly.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is a discussion of waiving or reducing select board license fees.
Okay, Madam Chair, this came up as a topic as far as board members discussed, what options, especially with COVID-19 and some of the impacts that businesses are feeling. What are some potential options for maybe reducing some of our fees for renewal of a liquor license or others that could sort of make it a little easier, especially given all the limitations businesses have on occupancy and the number of people that can be in an establishment. Within the board's packet, not only did Diane Dickerson pull together a good amount of information in the form of Excel spreadsheets, I also provided a informal results of survey that the Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce was trying to pull together for some of our neighboring towns as far as identifying what they are doing. It ranges both not only the information that Diane pulled together, but then also for our surrounding towns. Some of them are making no changes to their liquor licenses. Others are giving a portion back or even up to 75%. It is something that other towns are looking at. In some of the information Diane pulled together, there are some communities that are waiving that renewal fee in its entirety. I don't know if the board wants to go through some of the materials that Diane had pulled together. In the end, zoom in a little bit. We're looking at, I believe, around fees that were about $52,000 and change in total as far as the total amount of fees that are collected.
Are you just talking pouring licenses, Joe?
This is across all licenses.
Okay.
Because there's some that are like $25 common victual licenses.
Okay.
So.
For the pouring licenses, that comes, there's 12 of them at $3,250, which is just under 40 grand, right? 39 grand.
Yes, exactly.
That's the lion's share of the income is from the pouring license.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to begin by thanking Diane Dickerson for her
A lot of work.
all her hard work and homework on this. This is incredibly helpful. And we had been contacted by Great Road Kitchen, who actually was inquired about the possibility of the board considering this due to the hardship that they're experiencing with regard to the pandemic. Diane Dickerson did an excellent job, as you can see from our packet, researching and gathering this information together. And I clearly want to hear from other members of the board in this regard. My personal feeling is that, if we could consider waiving the fees, what would that impact be on us, on the budget, if anything? Personally, I feel that the impact on our budget would far outweigh the benefit it would have to the local businesses.
Even if it is $60,000, I think that it's, not that we have $60,000 to throw around, but and initially I was looking at it as the pouring licenses, and I do appreciate the level of detail that Joe and Diane have gone into and provided us. But I'm very much in favor of us looking at waiving at least the pouring licenses, if not all fees. So we're looking at $39,000 for the pouring licenses, and Joe, if your math is correct, it's not 21 grand beyond that for common vics, and which would help, the smaller mom and pop type stores that are need to get different licenses and whatnot. I think you're right, Cindy, that the benefit far outweighs the, we'll find the $60,000. We'll make cuts in order to get by without that $60,000 in fees and licensing. And frankly, it's kind of a double-sided sword here. So if we were to waive it this year, we are in the process of looking at, because in most instances, with the exception of the pouring license, our fees are pretty low. So coming off of that, it gives us some time to reevaluate where we're at with our fees and our fee structure, and in all likelihood, coming out of the pandemic, we will be implementing some sort of a fee increase for many of the fees. But I think that it's a awesome opportunity for us beyond anybody that has been able to take advantage of CARES funding that's available. I think it's just a small token that we are able to afford our small businesses.
Right, I agree. Any other comments from other members of the board?
I agree. I would consider this a $40,000 investment in local businesses, and I think it would go a long way. If people are concerned about the income, we could reduce it in some respect by the percentage that the businesses are allowed to serve customers. If they're at half capacity, we could cut it by 50%, but I have no objection to waiving the fee entirely this year.
Okay. Mr. Glavy?
Yeah. Most of you are probably aware that both Joe Knox and I are actually board members this year with the Littleton Business Association, and we had our annual meeting, was it 2 weeks ago, I think, Joe? We virtually by Zoom, and actually our speaker that night was our building commissioner, Ed Mullen, did a great job, but I'd requested of our chair, James Kennedy, to bring this subject up on the floor for the meeting, and to see if there was something we were missing here. But the general consensus, and correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong or add anything I missed, but people are very supportive. I mean, they realize our options are limited in helping them. But here's one area which is very targeted. And I wasn't sure at the time what the financial impact was. I'm actually happy to see. I wish we could do more, frankly, but it's not going to be a big hit on us. It's mid-year. I would suggest we're going to do it that we ask Cheryl to kind of address how she would intend to handle it in the, it's probably just some adjustments at the meeting at this year's the special meeting at the annual that we generally hold in May that can correct the books accordingly. If it's a $50,000-$60,000 offset, then we can do it somewhere. But yeah, we this is something they would feel in real impact this month, because this is when they're doing their licensing. They're getting killed, and they're probably all thinking, above everything else, you're going to come up with license fees. If we can say no, you don't have to do that this time. I just think it's terrific. And
I agree. Cheryl, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
Cheryl just pops in. She's like Colonel Flag on Mask.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. What I would say is, I think this is a great idea. And, as we we're just going through the tax classification informational materials, as we mentioned, our new growth came in above budget. And so that's an offset that we can apply to something like this. So I can offset the revenue that we had initially anticipated for these fees by the additional new growth that we had not budgeted. So it's good timing. I'm actually glad you brought that up, because we're going to make that adjustment tomorrow in DOR as we finalize that material.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Mr. Lane, is there anyone on the call that wanted to, from the business community?
We don't have anyone on the call as far as from the business community.
Okay. All right, great. Excellent. Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
No, I just,
I'm sorry, I let Mr. Knox go first. Sorry.
if I could, I don't think anyone would have ever predicted that what happened with this pandemic would have the effect that it did on this field of business. It's just, you talk to any of the business people that are in this line of work, and they're hurting so bad that no one would have thought that it would have been this bad. So I think Mr. Nordhaus had mentioned it's an investment that we're making that will end up paying off for us in the future.
Great. I agree.
Just procedurally, Madam Chair, is our intent then, I mean, we don't really have a formal motion to adopt tonight, but would the intent be to bring a motion back for the 7th? Or are you looking for a vote tonight? Maybe the question's to Joe, actually.
Yeah, right. I mean, I didn't prepare one, not knowing where the discussion was going to go as far as whether we need to provide additional information or provide different scenarios. So I I can easily bring something back for the next meeting to officially vote once we nail down the actual funds, make sure that everything is actually correct here.
It's easy enough for us to signal what we're going to do, but we probably ought to have something formal in front of us.
Right.
Okay.
You think so? Why can't we
Oh,
just
what the
make a
hell? Let's
motion?
wing it.
I mean, let's give them something to be thankful for on Thursday.
Well, we're telling them we're going to do it. You know,
It's not all that convoluted.
I mean, can Cheryl act on this?
I mean, I'll go with it, Chuck. Whatever, you know.
Yeah. All right. So
I mean, are we getting too hung up on it?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm just wondering whether we're missing something in a detail level, legally or otherwise. You know, we can always correct our mistakes later. That's true too, if we made one.
Cheryl, what's your time frame? When would you need
Tomorrow.
a vote? Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I think as long as I have, as long as I know that the full board supports this, I can make the adjustments for what I need to do. So I'm good. I don't need a formal vote from my perspective.
Well,
Okay.
by the same token, there's no reason for us to wait. Is that correct too?
Correct, absolutely.
All right, then Chuck, go for it.
I move that the select board vote to waive. Do we want to just do pouring licenses, which is the 39?
Now you're getting the shaky knees here.
Yeah. No,
All right, we waive all licensing fees for who, Joe? For retail establishments?
Waive the select board.
You ought to list the categories, I would think, would be the thing to do.
Bear with me. I
got it.
the pouring license.
It'll include pouring, package, off-premise, on-premise, CV, entertainment, etc.
Okay.
Including common vic?
And common vic.
Yeah, it's
Common
CV.
Vic, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, is that a motion?
Twas.
Yes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste?
Mr. DeCosta's aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye, so the motion is approved as crafted by Selectman DeCoste. Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and
This is
thank
good
you
stuff, guys.
again, Diane Dickerson and Mr. Layden for your work on this.
It was an artisanally crafted motion.
With the help of Colonel Flagg.
Okay, next on the agenda is item number 5, Town Administrator update.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to give the board update on a few things. Paul had given an update as far as our call with Town Council regarding revisions to RFP with the intent of providing draft to the board on the 7th of December, with then the anticipation following that of advertisement. Participate on a call this morning with the Library Building Committee. They are still on track for a September 21st, 2021 completion date. That's coming along. They're erecting some of the final components of the steel structure now. So it's really great to be looking out the rear window and seeing that library come along. Departments are working with finance director preparing preliminary budgets for completion of drafts by November 30th. We are also continuing to evaluate the 119 Tehadawon property, specifically as far as potential contamination of the property, but then also as far as asbestos and hazardous materials. So we're continuing to work with SVT consultants in order to make sure that the property is in the clear. This morning, also participated in a meeting with Ashley Shaheen, EHS director, as well as Marintown planner with Crosstown Connect. This was to also provide us with an update as far as what they're doing, since Ashley and I are still rather new here with the town. Most notably, you may all be aware that the commuter rail shuttle is currently on hold. The commuter rail shuttle is run by MART. MART is in the process of talking to communities about bringing back service and talking to Crosstown Connect. They are reaching out to businesses to find out what their businesses' plans are for reopening and bringing back staff so that we can then look at, after the beginning of the year, having a conversation with MART about when to bring back service. Crosstown Connect did say that employers such as IBM, they're still looking at remote employees right now, that come the spring, things may be a little different. So we asked that Crosstown Connect basically provide us with information on surveys of businesses so that we can better understand as far as what some of the employers are looking at. And that may be an opportunity, Chuck, to maybe even work with EDC to try to do some reach out. As board knows, our IT department, as well as Board of Health, and with the assistance of LCTV, are working to try to get some additional material out regarding COVID-19 and as far as the holidays. And also that's been followed up on a staff level to just remind people of best practices coming into the building, making sure that if there is something that can be done remotely over the phone, you know, that as we go into the colder weather, you know, we're best able to look out for each other. And that is basically it. Just a public service reminder, it's on the website, that town hall will be closed on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Layden. So next on the agenda is item number 6, consent agenda.
I don't have anything for that.
Okay. And final item on the agenda is our meeting minutes. Did we have any questions or comments from the board regarding the minutes?
Nope.
Okay, hearing no questions or comments, then Madam Chair, I will move that the board vote to approve the regular session meeting minutes of November 9, 2020.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste? Aye. Cindy Napoli is aye. The motions are approved as written. And that concludes our meeting for this evening. I just wanted to double check on our schedule going forward, Mr. Layden. We will be back on which dates?
We will be back December 1st on Tuesday for the public hearing for the tax classification. Our next meeting after that will be Monday, December 7th. And then the final meeting of 2020 will be December 21st.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, I apologize if you already touched on this, but you might want to speak to the starting date of our new town administrator, Anthony Ansaldi.
You beat me to it, Mr. Glavy.
And thank Joe for all his everything.
Yes.
Do you get anything
Which
else
he
you
won't
guys want
stop
to tell me
doing, by
to
the way.
say, or
He's
do
gonna
you
keep
just want
doing
to
it.
say it yourselves? So Mr. Ansaldi will be starting with us on November 30th, will be his first day as our town administrator. And again, we certainly want to thank Mr. Layden for stepping in as our acting town administrator during his absence. And we're looking forward to Mr. Ansaldi coming on board and getting the team in place and moving forward on many initiatives. It's going to be great to have everybody on board. I know a lot of people looking forward to it, in addition to the board and Mr. Layden himself. The other thing
we
I
really
wanted
haven't
to,
missed a beat though, have we? And you know, and it's amazing. So Joe, kudos to you.
yeah, absolutely.
Take Friday off, Joe.
Well, I mean, I'd like to also thank the board. Thank you for your patience and quite frankly, all the town employees, patience and assistance. Really without all of you as well as all of them and everyone's support over the last number of months. That's what made everything a lot easier and, you know, a pleasure to be able to serve everyone. One last note, just because there is a blue hand that's raised on the participant list. Someone was at least looking to be recognized to speak if that is the will of the board.
On which matter, Mr. Layden?
I don't know. I just see this is Kadra Walsh. She was originally here earlier in the evening.
Oh, okay.
Regarding that topic, yes.
Okay. I mean, she's certainly welcome to speak, but the board's not going to take any action at this time because we've deferred that matter to December. So
She might have a procedural question or something.
yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Hello, Ms. Walsh. You're available to talk if you can take your self off mic.
Just state your name and address.
Do you think they're still there?
They're still.
I think they took their hand down. So.
Okay.
Although.
Oh,
Motion to adjourn?
no. Oh, good
Hi.
evening.
She's back.
Hi.
I'm sorry, my internet connection is not great.
That's okay.
We appreciate you guys scheduling the time for this, and I just wanted to see if I could confirm because I know a lot of people had a hard time scheduling to get here this week. So I was just wondering if I could confirm that even if SVT cannot make it on the 7th, if we would still be able to have some time to give a presentation and air our concerns on the 7th.
So I think SVT actually requested the 7th. So we're pretty confident that they will be here. But in the event that they are not here on that date, I think at that point we'll certainly move forward regardless.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair?
I was just going to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that too, but
And it's unfortunate that it can't be what it usually is, but I hope everybody still finds a way to celebrate and connect with family and friends this Thanksgiving, and wish you to, stay safe and healthy out there and mask up. And we will see you back here on Tuesday, December 1st.
See you all, folks. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you all.
happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion. All those in favor, Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste,
Mr. DeCosta, yes.
and Cindy Napoli is yes. I think we already lost Paul. So
Pretty soon.
that concludes our meeting for this evening. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Joe.
Yep. You're welcome.
Good night, all.